Two people watching, I know the other person is not me. Well, I've had a busy day, but it's not the sort of busy day that you can say, oh, I've gone out here and gone there. I have basically not left home, but a lot of things have been going on, but maybe it's only in my mind because they went on online. So it's basically arguments I've been having with people and things that I disagreed with, and I guess I can tell you what happened if I work backwards. So I just had a look at the latest video of the British Democrats. It's sad that they don't understand that they'll never win, but I feel I guess they feel they have to do something, and they're not able to talk to people. I mean, I genuinely, sincerely offered to discuss ethno-nationalism with them on my channel, for as long as they liked, as often as they liked. But when I tweeted this offer, they just blocked me. So that they are really behaving like unreconstructed racists. I mean, surely if they want to impress upon people the virtues and benefits of ethno-nationalism, they should be able to discuss it rationally and honestly and not instinctively block me in that knee-jerk fashion. So I don't think they're really up for it in any kind of debate. I mean, assuming that the BBC are going to take them seriously, that they would be up to any kind of debate at all, other than to end up looking rather foolish and racist and undeserving. I do know that the case for ethno-nationalism continues to be made by people like Joel Davis, and I actually perfectly see why people would want it. People want to have their country inhabited by people looking roughly like them. They see the Japanese, the Chinese, the Africans having this sort of thing and don't see why they shouldn't. But of course, people in India, for example, they don't really enjoy it. I mean, all these people in India might look brown to white Western people, but they don't all agree. They don't all agree about how their country should be governed. And one of the things that Andrew Bronze was talking about was that he found it laughable. He found it laughable that cultural values should define nationality, because he felt it was something as concrete as race and ethnicity and descent, which nobody really denies. But white people now are not what they were. It is quite obvious that they are not what they were. Victorians are not Tudors. Edwardians are not Normans. The reign of Windsor is not the same as the reign of the House of Plantagenet. There are any number of differences that you can attribute to age, culture, race, history, circumstances. So if we want to talk about our identity, either individual or group, it's not just one thing that defines us. Obviously, if we're queuing for public convenience, and then our sex would define us. But if we are participating in some other activity, then something else might define us. If we're going to a political meeting, then our own political affiliations or religious loyalties would dictate which kind of political meeting that we go to and which place of worship we visit. So I think it's silly to look upon your nationality as being exclusively defined by race. It is one thing to wish one had the monoracial nature of the Japanese. I suppose a few people think that China is monoracial, but actually it has 56 ethnicities, and China's quite proud of it. So our identity is really a matter of what we think of ourselves, what others think of us, and what we really are. And this mistaken attempt to win elections is, I'm afraid, a terrible sign of not knowing what the problem is. Of course, I claim to know the problem better than anyone else, and I suspect that if I were to explain what I think is a problem to you, you would either not understand or pretend not to understand, and that would infuriate me even more. I know there are many topics that you don't like discussing because they are uncomfortable topics about the future and about the past and about all kinds of things that have gone wrong because Christianity and liberalism are kaput, and you can't acknowledge that because Christianity is your conceptual idol, even if you don't really believe that Jesus is God, and liberalism is also a sacred cow because you want. Well, you've been conditioned, you have been indoctrinated into thinking that the West was built on liberal values. That is really believing your own propaganda. But unfortunately, I live in a civilization where people seem to be proud that there are no public intellectuals capable of engaging with me or just asking the obvious next question. There are so many situations in which I think any person who's understood the situation would ask the obvious follow-up question, but it doesn't seem to happen at all. There's all this neurosis of blaming the Jews because they do have a theory of everything. The anti-Semites have a theory of everything, and it is to blame the Jews. And the Jews have a theory of everything, which is, well, the believing Jews anyway, which is to blame everything on on sin. Because, as any Orthodox Jew would know, God created good and evil. Therefore, suffering is punishment for sin. This is predicated on the assumption that the Abrahamic God is a perfectly moral God and he wouldn't cause suffering for no good reason. So even if we suffer and think we haven't done anything wrong, there is a reason that we do not yet know. And any study of history would tell you that there are lots of things that happen that teach the person learning history something or other about an event or a phenomenon, even if they Even if the lesson is not complete, we are to detect patterns, we are to note events. Jews define their identity through their suffering and victimhood. I know this annoys Gentiles because they think, well, they suffer too, but Jews are faced with this conundrum of being God's chosen people and being God's chosen victims. So how would a Jew reconcile this conundrum? Because to be called God's chosen people suggests that they are special and high status, but then they are frequently made examples of in a not very nice way. So I suppose they haven't really worked out whether they are high status or low status. And this can produce a lot of neurosis. And I've suggested many times already that they can regard themselves as Prometheus, whom Zeus decided to punish because he gave humanity the gift of fire. And I think the idea is that it was the gift of fire was kind of like the tree of knowledge, and Prometheus, by giving the gift of fire to humanity, meant that he had somehow given away the secrets of God, of Zeus, really. And for this he was punished, and he was punished through being chained to a rock. And his liver would be eaten as he was chained to the rock by an eagle every day. And when the eagle had finished eating and had its dinner and it would fly back to its nest, the liver of Prometheus would grow back again so that the punishment would be repeated the next day. So I'm saying really that if God exists, it would be the easiest thing for him to keep Jews in existence, thinking they are God's chosen people, and continue to punish them. For what are they being punished? Well, for disobedience to God's laws. What are the laws that Jews most disobey? I mean, do they disobey these laws more than Gentiles? I mean, we have to think of the list of things that God might be punishing them for. But we can start easy with 7 Noahide laws. You know, if Jews are so not doing their thing, and worse than that, they're not even doing what righteous Gentiles ought to be doing, then things are looking pretty bad for them. So we have the 7 Noahide laws forbidding murder, theft, sexual offences, sexual immorality, eating an animal while it's still alive, the positive commandment to establish a court and legal system, and the last 2 that will be considered to be controversial by atheists would be the prohibition against idolatry and blasphemy. And this is interesting because we have to think of God as if he does exist and is capable of knowing the hearts and minds of Jews. And this means we have to regard idolatry as a thought crime. You may well ask, how can one commit idolatry in one's mind? And I'm saying idolatry is more than just bowing before idols. That would be open idolatry. There is this crime called hidden idolatry, and it is really this internal disobedience to God's laws. And the point has been made that even Jews and Muslims apparently praying correctly could be guilty of hidden idolatry if during prayer their minds wander off into things unrelated to worshipping God or obeying his laws, but in fact wander into error and sin. And this is registered by an omniscient God. And what I'm leading up to is that if idolatry is a sin for Jews, attracting the death penalty, then it is a very serious sin, and if it is detectable by God, even when the Jew or Muslim is not doing anything, well, it isn't in fact bowing before idols, then it is indeed a very powerful God. And how would this kind of sin be measured? And I think the sin would be measured through the Jew or Muslim obviously not doing what his religious principles require him to do. And this brings me back to an earlier stream that I was on, which was the E8-hour stream, in which I warned those Muslims that they may be being punished for not obeying the command in chapter 18, verse 4 of the Quran, which tells them to admonish those who claim that God has begotten a son. I'm doing my best to help them. I admonish Christians on their behalf because they're far too soft on them. So E8-hour is a very long, it's like kind of, radio theology for Muslims and Christians and atheists, and they last about 9 hours on average and can last longer. And so it's good for people who want to talk about these things to drop in on them and talk about Christian and Muslim beliefs. But I think that they're far too soft on these Christians because they allow these Christians to give them the runaround. When I suppose I get frustrated because they think, okay, perhaps they want to be polite and they want to be friendly and, but the beliefs of Christians, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I do this and the more I think about it, the more it's so patently obvious that these Christians believe in nonsense and they can't justify it, they can't explain themselves, and I've been doing it for years. So these Christians cannot defend themselves if you accuse them of idolatry. Okay, if I had the time to run 9-hour streams, I would actually say, if you can defend Christianity against accusations of idolatry, then make an appointment, or if not, just know you are an idolater, cursed by God, whose civilization will crash and burn. Because when you think of the extent of the idolatry that has been spread by 3 global Christian empires, you begin to realize the theoretical extent of the sin of idolatry and blasphemy, if God exists and if he's going to punish people for that. Now, what is the harm of idolatry and blasphemy? I mean, as a principled agnostic, I have to say, I have to explain it to you. I mean, that the Quran has this repeated theme. It's a repeating theme that tells its reader not to waste their time worshipping idols that can neither help nor harm them. But it's actually more than a waste of time, because if you think of the opportunity cost of the time that you waste worshipping idols, if you do that sort of thing. But okay, what about Christians? We know Christians believe in nonsense, and they won't admit it, because Muslims are, they just let these idiotic idolaters give them a run around. So I guess I'm basically saying I could do it in 5 minutes, to expose the idolatry of the Christians. In 5 minutes, I can do it in 5 minutes. But they let these Christians talk and cite all these tedious verses here and there in the Old Testament, and I thought I made the point, so I quickly left, and then the same thing happened again. Okay, it's okay. This is what it's so infuriating. It's like you catch a mouse, after some effort, and you say, here, you put your paw on its tail. You don't let it get away, and of course it's and of course it they let it get away, and I guess that is the problem. They just get distracted so easily. And so basically I'm saying, it's just people not getting it, or not concentrating, or I don't know what it is. Is it a learning disability, or just thinking, oh, it doesn't matter, who cares about anything? We're just talking rubbish anyway, it doesn't matter. There's no sense of urgency. We just do things the way we've always done, even though we know it's all crashed and burned. We start new parties because we like fighting elections, because we want to call ourselves Democrats. And I'm saying democracy is dementia, liberalism is for losers, Christianity is kaput, and it seems nobody gets it. And finally, we go back to the Jews. I did have an exchange with some Jews on the Rudy Rockman tweet. So Rudy Rockman is a very good-looking young Jewish man who talks to people who hate him, and I think he's trying to work out why Gentiles hate him, and so he occasionally tweets out the provocative tweet saying, and his latest one was, we're hated because we're not what we are, something like that. And then I think he attracted a lot of outraged Jewish tweeters who said, "What do you mean?" and accusing him and me of victim blaming. And apparently not even being aware of the fact that Orthodox Jews regard Reform Jews as heretics. It took me a while to discover that, and only because I bothered to call rabbis and ask them what's going on. So they finally had to tell me. So it's not obvious, just by reading anywhere, anything about even books about Jews, like Judaism for Dummies, or any of those books. You just wouldn't know until somebody tells you that. Oh well, we think they're heretics, and then a little later they tell you that you know, we're not allowed to enter churches, which are places of abomination where idolatry is practiced, and we're not allowed to enter Reformed synagogues either because they are places of heresy. Yes, they are places of abomination where heresy is practiced, where heretics gather. So what is the problem with Jews? I mean, okay, I know what the problem with Jews is. They don't have a pope. And that's why you have the phenomenon of two Jews, three opinions. There's nobody to tell them, like, oh, you're wrong, shut up, or else. Because they don't have this pyramid structure of that the military would have, you see. And that's basically the structure of the Catholic priesthood, with the Pope at the top, who was supported by the doctrine of papal infallibility, declaring that the Pope is the final word on any matter, on any doctrinal matter. So so there, you can't argue with that. Well, you can, but then you'll end up being excommunicated from the Catholic Church. And now they don't do it because nobody cares. But in the days that when people thought religious observance was important, I think the pain of being excommunicated would be if you had a local, if you had a pub that was your local and all your friends were there, and then you had a fight with a publican or misbehaved yourself in some way, and then you were banned from the pub. That would be the pain of excommunication, made understandable to the 21st century atheist who scorn such things. Or perhaps, a ban from posting comments on Facebook or posting videos on YouTube, that sort of thing. It is a kind of excommunication. So the problem with Jews is that they don't have a hierarchical structure. They don't have a Pope of Judaism. So nothing works for them. I mean, like nationalists, they are the equivalent of the hippie movement. So any hippie can say anything he likes about whatever he thinks about hippiedom, and the same with Catholics and the same with Jews. They can say whatever they like, and nobody tells them off because they're all these sort of different groups. And they sort of know the Orthodox Jews that they know they can't really have a go at the liberal Jews because they're more liberal Jews, and liberal Jews will be supported by the liberal government of the gentile Western nation that they live in. So they don't want to chance it by picking a fight with liberal Jews who are in a way the teacher's pet. So that is a problem. So how do we get out of this deadlock? I'm doing my best on Twitter. I've been accused of anti-Semitism, I think at least 7 times on Twitter, because that's a standard trick to accuse you of anti-Semitism in the hope of shutting you up. But I'm not easily shut up by a few accusations of anti-Semitism. And anyway, all I have to do is ask them to cite the words with which they claim I am demonstrating anti-Semitism. They can't do it. So I think the problem is Jews not understanding their own religion. A few of them seemed genuinely surprised when I said that Reformed Jews are regarded as heretics by Orthodox Jews. So all these Reformed Jews are, we didn't know. That was what the other lot thought of us. And I tried to explain to them that, if you believe in God, I'm not saying you should, I'm not telling you to believe in God, but this is the theory. This is the theory. If God, the Abrahamic God, can detect idolatry, and if you're an atheist, that is idolatry, and for Jews, the penalty for idolatry is death, then, well, just assuming that God exists, he'll be plenty mad at all these liberal atheist Jews. So that explains all the punishment. They're not okay. Jews are not the only people who pretend to be religious, but are in fact atheists. And there are plenty of Muslims like that, and plenty of Christians. Lots of politicians who claim to be Christian because they know it will make them seem respectable, but actually, they don't care about any of that rubbish. They must be thinking to themselves, I'm only pretending to be Christian or Muslim, because to proclaim your atheism would be, well, asking for trouble. But if God exists, he will detect their hypocrisy and punish them accordingly. And he may be saving up, this punishment, because I guess if God is going to punish people, well, he could punish them after they're dead, and but we wouldn't know about that. So we can only, look at people in groups, and the biggest groups of people are people of religion. And this is really how you measure the effectiveness of religion. So we have, well, and I understand that it's quite hard to measure, because the Jews are they're only 0.1% of the total human population, and then come the Christians, and then come the Muslims. And Christians would appear to be top of the tree because of their three global empires, and Hindus would be bottom of the heap because they keep, well, they are a fallen civilization, and so is Buddhism a fallen civilization, because the only Buddhist people you can think of were it's what, Burma, Cambodia, Thailand, Tibet. They're not known for their success. And the Chinese are also a bit of a puzzle, since they are, officially anyway, believers in Marxist dialectical materialism, and that's also atheist. So I guess maybe some form of punishment also awaits them if they don't correct themselves. But what I think is so intriguing is the idea of the sin being its own punishment. So if God created the universe and has ownership of all ideas, then it is pretty impressive to create. a world of ideas where the sin is its own punishment. So for Jews, um, they'll always be around, I suppose. I mean, that's a theory since they've outlasted all ancient empires. But you know, they don't need to be, what's the word, flying high to um, to prove God's existence. You know, the fact that they're still around means that, you know, um, they are protected by God. But then you say, well, what about Hindus? You know, Hindus have been around. Maybe I think they've been around for longer than Jews. But then you have to look at Hindus and think and acknowledge that Hinduism is idolatry, and Hinduism is a name that the British gave the Indians. They never called themselves Hindus. You know, they had their various gods and which they worshipped, and you know, there is no sort of, okay, Hinduism is not organized religion. It's very disorganized, and neither is Buddhism in any way organized. And for this reason, you should dismiss these religions as in being in any way suitable for any self-respecting nation. I mean, China disdains to base base its statecraft on anything like Hinduism or Buddhism. It's tolerated, even if you're a peasant and you want to worship in your particular way. The laws in China are not going to stop you. But China doesn't owe its survival to the ideas of the Buddha. Of course it doesn't. It owes its survival to its political philosophers, its moral philosophers. And if you think about China and the Chinese, I think most of them could be said to be rational. You know, they can use their powers of deduction in rather the same way that Jews use their powers of deduction, which white liberal Westerners seem to have lost because they've been indoctrinated into believing in nonsense. They've been kind of force-fed Christianity, and after that liberalism, and they have to pretend to believe in that nonsense in order not to lose status. So most of the time they're really suffering from a terrible form of neurosis. On the one hand, hating what they are supposed to believe in, and on the other hand, fearful of expressing dissent. And those who express dissent are not the brightest bulbs in the box or the sharpest knives in the drawer, as I was explaining with the British Democrats. You really don't get politics if you don't understand that there is a qualitative difference between you saying what you want and getting it done. Now, you might say that I haven't got very far in getting things done. But even if I don't manage to do it in my lifetime, it seems, it is obvious that when Western man comes to his senses and makes all the correct conclusions from undisputed facts, secular Quranism would be adopted. I mean, what else are they going to adopt? Once you admit that Christianity is kaput and liberalism is for losers and democracy is dementia, what have you got but secular Quranism? I'll read the chat now. Yes, of course we are. Okay, we all have ancestors, we all have parents, but leave that aside. What should, what would we want to be aside from, okay, we can't help who, who our parents are. We would want to be honest. We would want to be reasonable. We would want to be moral. Those are the three things that any honest, reasonable, and decent human being would want to be. And if you're not any of those three things, why would anyone listen to you? So that would be my holy trinity. Yeah, I am trying to tell the Jews that they suffer because most of them are atheists and most of them don't even get their religion. It's actually a very simple religion. It's like they are the chosen people, they suffer. Why do they suffer? It must be because of their sin. What have they done wrong? And I've been saying to them, look, you're supposed to be lighting the way, being the light unto nations, to a less idolatrous, to less idolatrous societies. And therefore, you have to recommend that Gentiles follow Islam and denounce Christianity for its idolatry and blasphemy. You know what I've been saying to them. You must be sick of hearing it. And that's what I've been saying for years. But they don't get it, or they pretend not to get it. Did I say Jews don't know when to shut up? I haven't been to Cambodia. I'm sure it's a very nice place, but I haven't been there. It's very similar to, okay, you look at Thai writing, it's very similar to, what is it? Sanskrit, the kind of Hindu, Thai kind of writing, it is the same sort of thing. It's idolatry. Buddhism is, a kind of more compassionate form of Hinduism. And actually, Hinduism is a very cruel religion. You think of the worst, forms of treatment of women, sati, the burning of widows. It's all there. It all started with Hinduism. So I don't know why so many white people think it's, cute and compassionate. And I've been saying for so long that, you judge a religion by its scripture because that's the only way you can judge anything in theory. So you think, oh, this sounds the best because blah blah blah. Even though people can't quite manage to do it properly, you would at least know what the rules are, what the story is. You know, even if most people don't believe in it or they just ignore the bits that they don't like. But the pity of it is that you know by continuing to practice the idolatry and not being not thinking the logical thought, you're just delaying the correction, and the correction will be, well, good, will be beneficial because we all want to enjoy good government. So what is the problem with these annoying Jews who don't get it? They don't get it because they don't really believe in God. Because actually, if you really truly believed in God, you would just do all the things. You would just speak truth through power, and if they want to, execute you, so be it. Because I believe in an afterlife, and do your worst. I don't care. And martyrdom is also a Jewish idea. Socrates understood it. I don't know where he got the idea from, but in a way, it's sort of logical, isn't it? That Socrates just refused to shut up. He kept asking his questions until the Athenian establishment decided to shut him up, and they just assumed that he would shut up, but he wouldn't, because they said, well, if you say you're guilty, we won't kill you, but we'll just send you away into exile. And he said, no, I'd rather die. Hurry up. And for that reason, we still remember him. Imagine if he had said, all right, I'll go into exile. Nobody would remember him at all. So Socrates was right in treating the threats of his political establishment with such contempt. Now, if all the Jews, did the right thing from the beginning, they would have said, the moment Islam popped up, they would have said, well, Christians, you look, chapter 18, verse 4 tells Muslims to admonish those who claim that God has begotten a son. And, just admit it, Christian. You have no basis for your claim that God begot a son. And it's just blasphemy and, cultural appropriation of our God of Israel. How dare you? And they could say all those things. And the Christians, no doubt, would get angry, and then they would have, martyred all those Jews, and they would have provoked quite a fight. I guess then all the Jews would. What would they do? I suppose they would have just taken their martyrdom, and that would have been the end of the matter and been rewarded by God in the afterlife. But what about the Muslims? The Muslims never once in their entire history admonished the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury for claiming that God has begotten a son. I've asked this question so many times on Twitter at every opportunity possible, and in fact, Friendly Muslim, he's a tweeter, knows that this is what I do, that I keep going on about chapter 18, verse 4. And no Muslim has been able to say to me, sorry, Claire, but you're wrong. In such and such a year, Muslims sent this letter to the Archbishop of Canterbury and to the Pope, asking them how and why Christianity is not idolatry, and how and why Jesus is God, and we have the evidence. No, nobody's come up with that answer. So we have to take it as a given that Muslims never once in their entire Islamic history admonished any Christian religious leader for claiming that God has begotten a son. But it's not too late. So are they going to do it or not? I'm doing it for them. I'm doing what Jews are doing, should be doing, but they're not do. I'm doing for Muslims what they should be doing, but dare not do. So what are Jews and Muslims doing, not doing what I'm doing for? I would have thought they'd be, well, a little abashed that they're not doing what I'm doing. I mean, I'm just a principled agnostic, and they're supposed to be the ones believing in God and the afterlife, and they're not doing it. They're leaving it to me. What's going on? Are they all atheists, like these liberal Jews? Something to be thinking about. Yes, I do call them a bunch of cucks. Or people who genuinely don't know what the hell they're for now. Imagine not knowing that you are God's chosen people, not being able to ask a logical question. Like, well, if somebody said, "Oh, you've been chosen," you go, "Oh, chosen for what? That's the next question, isn't it? That's the next logical question that you should be asking. Chosen to do what? They don't even do it. It's like, oh no, we're just chosen to be Jews, to be annoying to the Gentiles and to look down our noses at them. I don't